afternoon. It's Up Your Vibe Radio. I'm Paula Callick, your host, and I am also a life strategist, a trainer, a supervisor, and today I am bringing you Liz Finley from the London area, and she's going to talk to you about women's health. Over to you, Liz. What is your story?
Good afternoon, Paula. I'd like to tell you about my success with endometriosis and how I've managed to get to the point of being completely symptom-free. And I know that my story can help other women out there. So I started off pretty much from the word go with pretty painful periods. But it was just explained to me that's part of the natural womanhood, and this is what you deal with. And they were quite debilitating, and I wasn't aware that it wasn't meant to be that sore. So I was actually only diagnosed at the age of 18.
So what is endometriosis, Liz? And you talked about fibrosis as well. You had a dual diagnosis.
Yes, so endometriosis is when the blood lining of the uterus is found outside of the uterus as well. And it can grow on all sorts of different organs. Mine was actually wrapped around my kidney tubes. It had spread to my colon. Now, the thing is, each month when you get your period, this tissue also tries to shed, if you will, even though it doesn't really go anywhere, but you get debilitating pain throughout your whole abdomen. And with some women, it can be not just the period, it can be throughout the month. It can make intercourse very painful, and it can even lead to infertility. So it really is problematic, and there's so many women who go undiagnosed.
So does this affect women who are menstruating, or can it affect older women as well?
They say that the most common sufferers are women of childbearing age.
Oh, gosh.
And usually it starts off, so when you first start your period, apparently you wouldn't normally have the severe symptoms. It's actually later on because it grows. This tissue is designed for a baby to grow in it. And so each month it grows too, but it can't shed anywhere and go anywhere.
Fibrosis is something that I'm familiar with because I had that when I was in my 20s, which was treated. So can you explain to our audience what fibrosis is?
Yes, because I actually, they found some fibrosis in my uterus. So when they say it is cancerous tissue, it's not cancer in the sense that our society knows it now, and that, oh my goodness, I'm going to have to go for chemo or radiation. It's cancerous in that it's tissue that's growing that should not be there. It should not be multiplying. So they could just remove it and it was fine. But yes, it's basically tissue that shouldn't be there.
Gosh, so Liz, you're an energy healer for people and animals, and this is what your experience with endometriosis and fibrosis is actually what put you on your path to becoming an energy healer. And your diagnosis was 8 years ago, I believe?
Oh no, more than that. It was when I was 18. So I'm now 34. What ended up happening at school is I was very fortunate in that mobile phones started being introduced. I'm from South Africa, so I was in school in South Africa. And it seemed a bit extravagant, but my mom did get me a mobile phone. But what I was using it for is whenever I started my period at school, my symptoms of the endometriosis is that I would feel faint, I would go pale, I would sometimes vomit. And so I would literally just phone my mom and she'd come fetch me from school.
It sounds absolutely horrendous, Liz. I can't even imagine how you coped with it. Really, I can't. And on top of this, you've had extensive stage 4 surgery?
Yes, so eventually I did get the diagnosis, and my initial surgeon, gynecologist said, well, let's just wait a little bit with the surgery. But I'm just very thankful I then moved surgeons because I wanted the new method of the laser, not the burning. And he said, gosh, this is stage 4. We've got to operate as soon as possible.
So when you talk about stages, what is stage 1, 2, 3, and 4?
Stage 4 is the worst.
Oh my gosh.
And it had spread. He sent me for a colonoscopy, not the most pleasant time of my life. I lost most of my dignity, but it was brilliant because it showed them that it spread into my colon. But he took the decision that let's just deal with the worst with the first surgery, and we'll look at the colon with the second surgery. So when I had the surgery, that's when they found the fibrosis in my uterus. It was such large clumps around the back of my uterus that they couldn't just use laser. They had to cut away and then use laser. And he said to me, look, it was so bad, you're going to have to come back for this same surgery every 2 years for the rest of your life.
And this is where you cheated the surgeon out of your business, because of course that was not to be, was it, Liz?
Exactly, because now I should have had 5 surgeries, and I've avoided all further ones. I've only had that initial one.
So what is it that you did in order to avoid these further surgeries?
Well, I didn't knowingly do anything. My parents and I actually just resolved ourselves to the fact that this is how it will have to be. So it was actually a completely different reason that I ended up getting into Reiki, and I did my first Reiki training back in 2010. And in between Reiki level 1 and 2, they advise that you give yourself Reiki every day. And so I was being very dedicated, and I actually had intentions of the Reiki helping me for something else. And to be honest, I wasn't really finding the relief of the other thing, but I kept to it. I was still finding general improvements in my life. But it was when I went for the checkup with my surgeon, my family and I, we were fully expecting him to say, right, when's the next theatre date for the surgery?
And how long was that after the original surgery, the checkup?
Oh, look, I was supposed to have it after 2 years. I pushed it because I couldn't actually take off work for so long. So I pushed it to the 3-year mark. And this is why I thought, it's going to be booked in immediately. But he had no medical explanation for why it was under control. And he admitted this, good for him, because he just looked at me absolutely gobsmacked. And he even pointed his finger at me and said, I don't know what you've been doing, but you keep doing it.
That is amazing. So what do you attribute then to your amazing success in not having to go for further surgeries?
Well, look, back then, that was 100% the Reiki, where it put it under control. It wasn't gone. I wasn't symptom-free, but it was under control that I didn't need further surgery. And so definitely energy healing, Reiki, all of that is what I attribute that to.
Okay,
it's been further on down the line that I ended up doing a pretty intense diet for damaged gut lining, and they call it leaky gut.
Oh yes, I have a book on that actually.
Yes, and I didn't even think of the endometriosis when I was doing this. And while doing it, I suddenly noticed that when I was having a period, it wasn't quite as bad. I was taking pain pills, but then I noticed that if I forgot to take them, because they were suggesting to me that before the period starts, before the pain sets in, start taking the pain pills.
So was this by following the suggestions made in the Leaky Gut book?
Well, no, it was doctors and gynecologists who said stay on the pill, take the pain pills before the period starts, all of that. But then I noticed when I did this hectic diet to heal leaky gut, if I forgot to start taking the pain pills, I wasn't in such debilitating pain. I then started trying it out. Can I maybe not take as many? Instead of taking 2, can I take 1? And slowly, I started getting the confidence.
So is this why you say the recovery plan are like pieces of a puzzle? There's not just one solution. So it's not just about the food that you eat. What else?
Oh, absolutely. Everyone's got to find what fits with them. I mean, I've had the most weird and wonderful therapies, experiences, you name it. I've tried color therapy. I've tried all sorts of things, dowsing, you name it. And I found what works for me, but what I'm talking about today is what seems to be working for my clients as well with the endometriosis. In that what seems to be a common thread is the combination of the Reiki, or if you'd like to call it energy healing, and then mainly cutting out gluten. And so that was one of my points, in that it's been attributed to many illnesses and ailments. I know there are many
for our audience, sorry, people might not understand what you mean by gluten. So what is this one main food that you talk about that is the root cause of all illness? I know you've said gluten, but it is wheat, isn't it? Gluten is wheat.
Yes, well, definitely wheat, but I personally believe that it would be gluten as a whole. I found more results when I went gluten-free. I was initially wheat-free, and it just got better going gluten-free, and with my clients as well. Some of them started.
What sorts of foods contain gluten?
So wheat is gluten, but it's also rye and barley. Now, you've got to be careful with oats, because oats is not actually gluten, but you get the cross-contamination in two ways. Firstly, it could be in a factory that handles gluten.
Okay.
Or otherwise, what they're doing is, with some of these fields, is they do crop rotation. And so they grow oats some of the time, but other times they grow wheat. And this is problematic for celiacs or people like us who might be very sensitive to gluten. And so that's why you would need to then start looking for gluten-free oats.
And of course, wheat was introduced into the food line, I believe, about 3,000 years ago. I may be wrong. So in terms of human evolution, it's not a long time for us to accept wheat and be able to digest it, and for the body to take care of that part of it. So this is probably, why we're unable to, why some people are very sensitive to wheat. I have tried all of the wheat products myself as well. And I know you've got an amazing story, but for myself, and my 6 weeks challenge, in less than 2 weeks, I've dropped 2.5 kilos.
That's fabulous.
You dropped a lot more though, didn't you?
Yes, when I first went wheat free, I actually lost 10 kilograms within 2 weeks, and I wasn't starving myself. And it was explained to me that gluten, and of course that includes wheat, creates inflammation in the body. And so some people just deal with it and cope a lot better than others. But
particularly in the gut though, isn't it? We're talking mostly about the gut.
Yes, but it will create inflammation throughout the entire body. So there have been, some people who are suffering with inflammation in the joints and all of that. There's some healthcare practitioners who have suggested, well, possibly try going gluten-free and you might find some relief. Again, it's not the only cause of inflammation in the joints, but some people have found a benefit and relief from that.
So generally, going gluten-free can help a lot of symptoms throughout your whole body.
Yeah, in the research that I've done, this is what it's saying. And what they explain is that, as you said, it was only recent in our whole time here on the planet. It's only been recently introduced, the grains.
Yes.
And so some people are not coping as well as others, because we're hoping for evolutionary processes to take place with our digestive system. And it takes millions of years, not thousands. I think they started farming 12,000 years ago. But one of the problems with wheat is that they started crossbreeding it. It actually used to be very special and expensive to buy. It wasn't so widely available, and it was farmers who started, if you want to call it, crossbreeding it, to get a slightly thicker sheath, to protect it against pests, a little bit bigger, and that's why wheat is a lot cheaper. It's easier to grow and all of that, but with that come problems.
Is that genetically modified that you're referring to then? Genetically modified? GMO?
Look, not in the modern sense that we're talking about today, but they call it a sort of early version of genetically modifying, because they're crossbreeding, but it wasn't, because this was done, look, I might be a little bit off with the dates, but, maybe 100 or a couple of 100 years ago. It's in our recent history. So they weren't doing anything in laboratories then. It was really just farmers choosing which which ones they want to then grow to slightly alter things.
Yes.
But yeah, as that then goes down our digestive tracts, you might not be celiac. You might not actually have an allergy to wheat, but it creates damage as it's going down the digestive tract, in that it hurts you a little bit.
Yes.
And creates inflammation in the gut. And so again, I mean, I've had allergy tests, I've had the celiac test, it's all come back negative. Mm-hmm. And I think my problem with it is that as it's going down the digestive tract, it's creating little sores.
Yes.
Tiny, almost like a pin, you know, that just pricks you along the way.
And the gut is referred to as the second brain. Yes. Apparently in the gut, there's enough brain cells in there is the size of a dog's brain. And people might laugh at that and say, well, that's not a big brain. But actually, dogs are very intelligent, and so is the gut. And it is difficult to understand why things go wrong in the gut, and we're all very unique in what we can tolerate. But it is well proven scientifically now that we can cause problems within the gut, as 85% of the serotonin comes from the gut, which of course is responsible for our happiness.
Absolutely.
There's many physical, emotional and mental issues are from the gut. And there's the connection with the heart and with the brain. So we have this trinity of brain cells that's from the gut to the heart and to the brain. And each one of them communicate with each other. So is there any wonder that things can go wrong? If something's wrong in the gut, it's bound to affect the rest of the body.
Yes, because it's a whole system that works together. And in some of my research, actually, they have identified a link between eating gluten and depression. Look, it doesn't mean that all depression then is caused by eating gluten, but they have suggested then that it could help people with depression if they do go gluten-free.
Yes, I believe that, because a lot of emotional issues do come from gut instinct. If you're following your gut instinct, you're most likely to make the right choices. But once you bypass the gut and take no notice of it, then you're relying on other things to help you to resolve issues. Which brings us to our third point here. There is hope. Many people have reversed symptoms of incurable autoimmune disease. And that is not just what you're talking about, that's other autoimmune diseases as well.
Absolutely. So when I ended up doing that very intense diet to heal leaky gut, I did loads of research online, and there are incredible stories out there. There was literally a woman, I think she's got ME, and she was in a wheelchair, and she's now walking.
That is amazing.
It's all down to food.
So can you just explain leaky gut? Because the audience may not understand what you're saying, what you're talking about when you refer to leaky gut. What is leaky gut?
Yes. When it was first said to me, I just said, no, I don't have diarrhea. Because that's the automatic assumption I made. So what leaky gut means is that the gut lining is damaged, and so toxins are leaking into the bloodstream, and that's where that the leaky comes from. So you get tiny little holes. So this is where gluten is seen as a culprit, in that each time you eat gluten, they explain it a bit like a brick wall. And the gluten comes along and knocks out a brick here and there, but your body repairs it. But with leaky gut, the body is not repairing it as quick as the bricks are being pushed out.
Is that because the body system becomes overwhelmed?
Yes, because with all of these toxins being released into the bloodstream, the immune system is then set off, and it's pretty much active 24/7. So the poor immune system gets no break. And then it starts...
Does that affect the metabolism as well?
I'll admit I'm not sure about that. It might do. But what I read about the immune system is that when it's constantly stimulated like that, it starts, they call it shooting now and asking questions later.
Wow.
So that's when you get autoimmune conditions, because the body starts attacking itself because it's confused, it's exhausted.
Yes, yeah. Just
So
like
that,
we become confused and exhausted by the negative thoughts that we are, 70% of our thoughts are negative, and I strongly believe that the mind-body connection does not really help the digestive system in any way.
oh yes, because I know as a child, if there was something I didn't want to do at school, I loathed swimming lessons. I would get a sore stomach.
Because it puts you into the fight-flight response, the three Fs: fight, flight, or freeze. And, before, in the Neanderthal times, we used to use this response to escape a saber-toothed tiger or for survival. But now the fight-flight response kicks in just because of emotional responses.
And just our daily stress.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's actually where the Reiki and the energy healing comes in as well, in that you can be a skeptic and not really believe that any of it works. But what is scientifically proven is that the relaxation that it induces kickstarts the parasympathetic nervous system, and that deals with all the stress hormones that come about through the fight or flight response.
Gosh, it is amazing. I have had Reiki myself, and the effects of it lasted for a few days afterwards too.
Absolutely. A lot of my clients say it's the best 2 nights sleep that they have.
And what amazed me as well during that Reiki session is the person doing the Reiki could actually feel the heat at the points that was affecting me.
Oh, yes.
Very
yes,
intuitive.
My hands really heat up. And then I know that's a sign for me personally. Each Reiki practitioner is a bit different. Some people will feel tingling or heat. I feel a combination. Other people know that if it's really cold for them, they must stay there. But for me, if it really heats up, I know I must stay there. Yeah. And my clients feel it because I use a combination of touch and no touching, depending on the area or what I'm guided to do. And when I have touched my clients and they've really drawn a lot in, I've had them comment afterwards. One lady said it was going through her mind that I'm probably not very good with pastry.
So when you perform Reiki on people, are there follow-ups, or is it 1 session or 2 sessions? How many sessions does it use?
It's totally individual. Look, I would suggest, for something, if they are dealing with endometriosis or, any other women's health issues or, any sort of long-term illness, I would suggest a few. I mean, if you take it, I was giving myself Reiki every day. For I think it was a minimum of 3 months, and then I continued because I had results.
You have your own practice in Battersea, don't you?
Yes,
but you also visit people in the London area, and you practice online as well.
Yes, I do distance healing, so it doesn't matter where they are in the world. I can tune in with their energies, and send it to them at a convenient time for them.
And what about surrogate work? Are you able to heal people who are not actually there through somebody else? Or?
Yeah, so that's the distant healing. Yeah. I don't actually need a physical surrogate. I just tune into their energies. I can either just imagine them in front of me, or some of my training, they got us to use cushions, pillows, or even a stuffed animal, so that you can sort of get a sense for where you're moving your hands to direct the energy.
That's
some people have had results after just even 1 session. If they don't have such an intense illness or ailment, it can just take 1 session where they maybe need to release a bit of emotional trauma. But I like to leave it to the individual. They'll know. They'll be able to see the effects and know in their heart when they need to come again. I'm not really somebody who'd like to say, right, you need to see me once a week for the next 6 weeks.
Exactly. So if someone would want to get in touch with you, how would they do that, Liz?
I guess the easiest is to go to my website. So that's www.lizfindlay.com, and you spell the Findlay Findlay. Okay. I'm also on Facebook as Liz Findlay Healing. All my contact details are on my website, and I've joined Instagram as well, also Liz Findlay Healing.
And of course, I will be posting all of your links along with the podcast. So that will make it easier for the audience to get in touch with you. So what about the future for you? Do you see yourself having any further surgery, or are
Oh,
you?
absolutely not. I'm now completely 100% symptom-free. That my doctor has actually put this in past medical history. So on their computer system, it's no longer seen as current.
Gosh, that is
And
such an amazing result.
yes, and the exciting news is now I've taken the decision to actually come off the pill, because originally it was advised to me, because things were so bad, I actually had to take the pill continuously and just schedule in 4 bleeds per year.
So
Just
when you're talking
because,
about the pill, you mean the contraceptive pill or medication?
yes, the contraceptive pill.
Okay.
Because it seems to be the standard go-to prescription for women with endometriosis. And I will admit it did provide some relief. And the other benefit, which I know is not ideal, it's natural for us to shed our blood lining once a month. But because things were so bad with me, I would not have that break within the pill to then have a period. I would just take packs back to back. And then when it was convenient, they said to just schedule in 4 bleeds per year. And I managed to, once I became symptom-free, to then have a monthly bleed. Okay. No problems, which was excellent. And now I'm taking the decision to actually come off the pill. But I've done loads of research as well, in that when you've been on it for 18 years like me, the body can go into shock. I know the doctors say you just stop the pill. Yeah. But there are loads of things that you can do to support your body while you're coming off, because you can get all sorts of symptoms. Never mind just your period sort of coming and going, or all of that. You can get mood swings, headaches, because essentially your body is in a way detoxing as well, because you've had these synthetic hormones.
Well, like any medication, it's a toxin that you're introducing into the body, and once the body accepts it, that's fine. When you first went on the pill, there was probably symptoms that you had, and now that you want to take that away, the body is going to really object. So it's about managing that and titrating off it in a sensible way.
And I was very fortunate, because one of my clients is actually a functional medicine doctor. Wow. And while I'm not her patient, she was very kind to just give me a bit of a side note of introduce more wild salmon, but it must be the wild version. Mm-hmm. Increase vitamin D levels. Yes. And eat lots of almonds. So and I tried to stick to organic wherever possible. So yes, I went and bought myself loads of organic almonds, and I've been enjoying them.
They are very, very therapeutic in the sense that they give you the right nutrients in order to deal with what is going to occur in the body whilst it's becoming free of the toxins.
Yes, yes.
So it's not over for you yet. You still have quite a long way to go in terms of learning. When you talked about functional medicine, what is functional medicine?
So functional medicine doctors are a little bit different to our conventional GPs, in that they also use a lot of, for want of a better description, maybe natural and perhaps in some sense herbal. When I saw a functional medicine doctor about 3.5 years ago, I had some fatigue and some gut issues that we couldn't really explain. The NHS did some tests. They said they can see something's wrong, but they weren't quite sure what was going on. So I just took the decision to see a functional medicine doctor. And he diagnosed me with 2 different types of candida in my gut, which is yeast. Mm-hmm. But he didn't prescribe me any prescription drugs. But he's done all of the training that a normal doctor has done. He prescribed me all sorts of natural supplements to then deal with this and other issues in my body to get things running smoothly. And after all that I've been through and all the prescription drugs that I've been on, and I'm now off, for me personally, I prefer the natural route. I prefer natural remedies, all sorts of things like that. And so that's why I'm also thrilled to be off the pain pills for the endometriosis.
So, Liz, what I am hearing is that you've actually taken responsibility for your own health, and you're not expecting any tablets to fix you.
Yes, and what's interesting is actually, if I do look back in my past, it's an interesting concept in that I used to feel some form of love and caring and nurturing every time I got a prescription from the doctor. I liked it. I felt very cared for.
Yes.
And I then finally came to the realization that these drugs, while they can be beneficial and they have their place, for the most part, it actually wasn't serving me for my highest and greatest good. And that I'm way better off with supplements and food. You can, they're amazing source of food out there, what we have available to us, that you can get many vitamins, minerals, and all of that. Look, soil depletion is another subject altogether. That's why I supplement as well. But we don't.
Our body is designed to repair itself. It's actually only what we do to it that overwhelms that process. So by going back to the basics, like you have done, that is, in my opinion, the best way to go. You know, we are unique and individual and amazing, and we can repair ourselves in the right conditions. But eating the processed foods that we eat, taking the toxins that we do, the stressors, they all affect the body. And it's about stepping back and taking a look and being responsible, not just for what you eat, but for your thoughts too.
Also the side effects that the medications come with, and again, they do have their place. But when I was put on some medication for something else, and one of the side effects was a bit of vertigo. So when I got to the London Underground stations, and you've got these long escalators going down, if was nobody else there, because I kept having the sensation of falling forward, I would either have to wait for somebody to stand in front of me, or I'd have to turn sideways and do deep breathing. Whereas now that I'm off that medication, I've got no issues going down an escalator, because it was never true vertigo. It was a side effect of that prescription drug.
And there are generally lots of side effects that are made quite clear to you on the leaflets that's given to you with the medication. And when someone reads that list of things on there, they still go ahead and take the medication.
We did, because you're desperate.
Because they trust in the medication. There is this trust that because it's being prescribed for you by a GP or by whoever is going to prescribe it, that it's the right choice. You put your trust into the medical orthodox profession, but yet your own body, you must trust in it. It's going to tell you when you're not well, and it gives you the opportunity to do the things to repair that body.
Yeah, if you just give the body the right conditions and environment, like you say, it will heal itself.
It is amazing. So with your endometriosis now, it being under control, what is the future for you, Liz?
Oh, just normal periods and and being pain-free. Look, it was always advised that I have a child, because apparently being pregnant actually helps the condition. I still haven't had children yet. Perhaps it's in my future, I don't know. But it's very unlikely. When I had my checkup, I probably am still fertile. There are no issues with that. So yeah, it's a bright future. And
so you'd like to plan to have a child in the future?
Oh, look, I leave it up to the universe. If it's in my stars, it's in my stars, but no plans right now.
Well, you have just come such a long way over these years. Since you were 16, did you say? You've had endometriosis?
Well, I started my periods at 12, and progressively from there it just got really debilitating. So I would say right from the beginning, really.
But from where you were then and where you are now, they're totally different places, and that is due to you taking responsibility for your own health.
Yeah, the Reiki and the food.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I would love people to listen to what you said today and take some action and start to take small steps to remove things from the diet and use organic food. Take responsibility, because this body that we have been gifted is the only asset that we've been given for free. And I'm stealing a line from Sherry Thacker now, but your health is non-negotiable. It really
Yes.
is. And you have to take care of this body because it's got to serve you for a long time. And unfortunately, as I look out into society, I can see that people do abuse their bodies, from the food that they eat, from what they drink, from smoking, from drugs, illicit or prescribed. They all take a toll on that body. And it's time to stand up and say, look, it's time for me to take care of my body. This is my asset. You're never going to get a free asset gifted to you again. So why
No.
not take care of it?
And the other thing is that there are toxins in our environment. And I was totally oblivious. Some of these cosmetic companies, they've got amazing marketing campaigns where you think it's all natural and everything. And when I read a book and they highlighted some toxins to look out for, let me tell you, I looked through my bathroom and it was in 90% of my cosmetics. And so over the last 8 years, I've done a very slow transition into trying to use products without. So the main things are parabens. You want to stay away from them. Sodium lauryl sulfate or sodium laureth sulfate,
Yes.
and propylene glycol. Look, there are many more, but those are the top 3 that I look out for.
I was so disappointed recently because I ordered a facial cleanser and toner online that said it was organic. And when it arrived, I looked on the back and no, it wasn't. It had animal fat in it. And to me, that's not organic. So they, you know, people are not always truthful when they advertise a product, because I have removed all of those sorts of things from my bathroom cabinet too. I use completely natural products to shower in, to wash my hair, to brush my teeth, fluoride-free products. I've made massive changes in my life in order to preserve what I have right now, because the aging process doesn't have to be as it is now. There is no physical reason why we should age in the way that we're aging. It's purely what we're doing to ourselves.
Yes. And these toxins in our cosmetics, you might think, oh, but it's just going on my skin. But the skin is actually said to be the largest organ of the body.
It absolutely is.
Yes, it absorbs right in. And a little bit like, you know, when you damage your gut lining and expose your gut to toxins, it goes into the bloodstream. Well, similarly, if you just have this low level of toxin exposure to your skin as well, over time it accumulates and it's eventually going to start doing damage.
Yes. I believe the skin, the organ of the skin is around 15% of the body, which is huge. You know, I think it's bigger than any other organ that we have. Yeah, we just take it for granted. But if you're ill, it is going to show in your skin.
Yes, you know, I've seen reports that psoriasis is actually an autoimmune disease.
Possibly so. There is also a mind-body connection with psoriasis in terms of meta health, which means that you're missing something. You're aware of the mind-body connection.
Yes, absolutely.
So every symptom generally is a result of something that's going on in your life as well.
Well, Louise Hay, I mean, her book, You Can Heal My Life, is big. I constantly refer to it. And if some of my clients are open to it, I'll whip it out. We'll look in the back, look at their symptoms. I recently had a client with warts. And incidentally, you look in Louise Hay's book and it says there something to the effect of a belief of ugliness. And what did this woman just say to me? She's getting old and feeling ugly.
Oh.
So it was so true. It was so appropriate.
Of course, when you tell yourself that, you're exactly right. Whatever you tell yourself, you're exactly right. It doesn't matter what you say, and anything negative that you say about yourself, your mind is going to take it on as reality and objectify it for you.
Yes.
And it's so frustrating in everyday life. I hear people talking negatively, and you can correct them, and then the next time you hear them saying exactly the same things, because it's habit. Once you get into that habit of talking negatively, it's very difficult to get out of.
And we get it from childhood, because it may or may not be our parents' fault. You know, you can't always blame them. Sometimes it's just picked up. Because I witnessed a little girl, a friend's daughter. I was doing arts and crafts with her. And I think she knocked something over or dropped something. And her automatic response was, "Oh, I'm so silly." And I said to her, "No, you're not silly.
Yeah.
You've just made a little mistake. That's fine. Don't worry.
Yeah.
You're making a beautiful picture here."
Because that blueprint.
I was so shocked. She was 5, telling herself that she's silly.
And that blueprint that she's made will follow her through life. And at that age, she's not actually responsible enough to know the difference. But the blueprint is made, and it's only as you get older you can change that blueprint. And this includes everything, taking responsibility. You know, we're told from an early age, oh, if you're ill, I'll take you to the doctors.
And as I said, I loved going to the doctors. I felt so cared for.
Exactly. So, Liz, if you had a favourite quote to share with people, what would that be?
Yes. It's, you don't mind, I'm going to read it. I get it exactly right. The best way to achieve happiness for oneself is to give happiness to others. Now, that's from David Mitchie and his book, The Dalai Lama's Cat. I just absolutely love that book. Now, this is a big concept, and actually I've got a friend who's in the AA, and they promote this a lot, is that when you want to find your own inner happiness, help others.
And is that Alcoholics Anonymous you're talking about?
Yes, I've got a friend who helps in there. And it's so true, when you're focusing on yourself, and you can often get into the woe is me cycle, and this is why I do what I do. I know that one of the reasons why I went through my journey with the endometriosis is because I did find what worked. I'm out the other side, and I can help other people. And let me tell you, it brings me so much joy when I share my story. I help people, give them an energy healing, and then they come back and they give me how they've progressed, how it's helped them. It's just, it warms my heart, and this is why I do what I do. This is why I gave up the corporate job to help others, and that's what warms my heart.
Yes. I understand that completely. And happiness truly is an inside job. You know, people think, oh, if I get a better job, I'll be happier. Or if I get a better
fast car.
If I get a fast car, or a better girlfriend or boyfriend. But actually, you soon tire of all of those things. It's about getting the inside happy. And that's just it. How do people do that? It's a massive question, and not something that we're going to cover today, so I don't think I'm foisting that question. So about you, is there anything that you'd like to share personally about, such as what you do for a hobby, if you get any spare time?
Oh, look, I love all sorts of meditation groups. Actually, this past Sunday, I spent an entire day with gong baths. That's at the College of Psychic Studies in Kensington.
Gosh.
So a true gong master called Olaf Nixon, he brings usually 4 to 6 gongs, all sorts of other instruments like conchas and didgeridoos and all of that. And you just lie there immersed in this. And that's where I find my healing. It's just absolutely wonderful.
In terms of physical health, do you do exercise?
Yes, I live near Battersea Park, so I try to get there every day, minimum a half an hour walk, but I do try for an hour. Just be with nature. That's where I also do some positive affirmations as I'm walking through the park and just connecting, watching the squirrels. I love...
So nature's a very good healer itself, isn't it?
Oh, yes. Nature is so important, and especially living in London.
Exactly.
It's a busy city, the smog, all of that. It's very important to get and also for grounding. When you do energy work, you need to ground. And so one of the ways is nature. If
you were fortunate enough to win £1 million tomorrow, what would be the first thing that came to your mind that you would do with that £1 million?
There are two things. Go on a holiday. I think we all need rest and relaxation, but then the main thing that is big for me is I would love to have an animal sanctuary in the countryside. So that would be it. £1 million, animal sanctuary.
Because you actually do energy work with animals as well, don't you?
Yes, I'm an animal healer. And I can do that one-on-one, so in person, and also distantly as well.
And that's through Reiki too?
Yes, you could call it generally Reiki. I've done a number of courses. I did a 1-year diploma course in animal healing. Mm-hmm. And the lady there said it's all the same. You're connecting to a sort of universal energy force and sending it out through your hands. So although I have done advanced equine Reiki, the general training that I did for the small animals was not formally called Reiki. It was called animal healing.
So do animals, this might sound a strange question, but do animals suffer similar illnesses to what humans do?
Yes, and the interesting thing is they start mirroring. I've read a number of cases where you'll get pet guardian and the pet being diagnosed with cancer.
Oh God, that is just like mind-blowing.
Yeah. And also the animals sometimes take things on. Look, they can sometimes have their own traumas. Whatever happens to them from prior to you adopting them, mm-hmm. especially these rescue animals. Mm-hmm. But even just as they age, I've helped a number of dogs with arthritis, and I've even got a cat client with epilepsy. And you see, I don't replace the vet. I work alongside the vet.
Exactly.
So this cat is still on his epilepsy medication. But what we've found, I didn't promise anything with the healing. Mm-hmm. But what we've found is that the healing is helping with the side effects of the medication, which is amazing. He couldn't sit still or sleep for more than 5 minutes. He would then walk up and pace. So that means walking around. And now with the energy healing, long story short, he's now sleeping in his mom's bed again. He's thrilled with that.
And Liz, your story is going to impress so many people who need your help. And if you have any questions for Liz, do feel free to get in touch with her.
Absolutely.
Liz is living proof of taking responsibility for your own health does work.
Absolutely. Thank you, Paula.
It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on Up Your Vibe. And I'd love to have you on again sometime, and maybe we'll talk more about the animal healing, because we haven't had a lot of time to do that today. Thank you so much for your time, because I know that you're a very, very busy lady.
Thank you, Paula.
And thank you for sharing your gift with the world, because you are a true inspiration.
Oh, thank you so much.
It's been my pleasure to have you on the show, and thank you for your time.